There's a difference between loving something and having an addiction to it. So a lot of people in my experience that say they love food, they actually hate food because consciously they want to lose weight. Fasting keeps your metabolism high as opposed to just cutting calories and eating all day, which is really good if your goal is to not only lose body fat, but keep it off. If you are working out and going to the gym during these long fasts, I mean, you're packing on muscle while aggressively losing body fat. It's like a cheat code.
Joel, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Aaron. Honored to be here.
Well, you know, I don't know if you know, but my previous life, I was a Navy chef. I don't know, that's kind of being generous. I was a cook, but I worked my way up to cooking for a 3-star admiral in Italy. And my first question to you is, why do you hate food?
Well, that's funny because I was in the Navy on submarines, and that was their big selling point. They don't tell you that it's pretty much like 5.5 feet tall and you're always hunching over and it's all guys and it smells like recycled farts. They say, oh man, haven't you heard? The food on a submarine is so much better. And that's how they sucker you into signing up for that.
Well, it's true. I mean, that's especially in the Navy, but there are a few places in the Navy that are kind of best kept secrets for food. You go to a carrier and it's like dehydrated potatoes, being stirred in a giant vat the size of a Volkswagen on submarines. Or say the smaller ships like minesweepers, they're smaller crews. So you get the cooks, the culinary specialists are called, get to be a little more creative. And then you pull into foreign ports and you get restocked, refit, that kind of thing. And you get to sample some of the local fare anyways. Enough about me and the Navy, but not to take over my own show. But you know what I'm talking about, though. You advocate for starving yourself.
Sure. Well, fasting, there's a difference between fasting and starving yourself. But so I would argue I love food just as much or more than the next guy. But I'm also cognizant of there's a difference between loving something and having an addiction to it. So a lot of people in my experience that say they love food, especially guys, they actually really hate food because consciously they want to lose weight. They want to look like they did back in the military or in high school when they played sports or college. And the one thing that keeps them from doing that is this food addiction. So they go to the gym, they wake up early, they, get enough protein, but because they have an unhealthy addiction or relationship with food, they tell themselves and the people that they think are judging them that they love food too much. But in reality, I would argue it's more of a dependence on food.
We do need our nutrition. So can you maybe clarify a little bit on, it's a necessity, right? Sustenance. But what's the difference between a necessity and an addiction when it comes to food?
Well, body fat is going to be your leading indicator on that. Because if you have body fat on you, especially a significant amount of body fat, then you don't need food. You already have food. It's waiting to be burned. That is what body fat is. It's excess energy that your body has not had the time or energy or resources to burn. It's kind of like going into debt. It's like, I only need 2,500 calories a day, but I average an extra 1,000 calories that my body is saving for a rainy day. But because most of us live in America and eat constantly and we can go drive through somewhere or have something in 10 seconds if we wanted, or even get it dropped off at our house, a lot of times we confuse stress for hunger, worry for hunger, procrastination for hunger, boredom for hunger, and we're constantly overeating. So no, I have a client right now who isn't even a fat guy anymore. He used to be a fat guy, but now he's not. He's 215 pounds and he's a brick shithouse, frankly, but he's got a little bit of body fat on him like we all do. And he's on day 28 of a 40-day fast. And so it just goes to show you, like, I wouldn't recommend that to most people. This guy's a freaking legend. But it goes to show you, like, no, you don't need to eat 6 times a day at all, especially if you have 50 pounds of fat hanging around your midsection.
You never know when there will be a sudden famine.
That's scarcity, yeah. That's something I try to stay away from.
All of a sudden, we could be go from abundance to the Dust Bowl. I don't know, but I want to be prepared. I'm a Boy Scout like that.
Yeah, and guess what? I agree with you. And that's like a trick my mind's tried to play on me. So I did a 14-day fast a few weeks ago, and that was the trick that my mind kept playing on me was, man, what if there's a power outage and the food chain breaks down and you're not only like haven't eaten in 2 weeks, but you don't have any body fat reserves left? Number one, it's important to understand that it's smart to be prepared, but that doesn't mean eating 12 times today in case there's a shutdown tomorrow. It means maybe I have my Alex Jones good for 30-year supply down in my basement in case shit pops off. But, you know, I'd rather not eat it. But if I have to feed my family, it's there. I would argue it'd be more beneficial if supply chains did break down to realize that you could eat once a day and be perfectly fine and not have to be constantly consuming.
All right. Well, you're talking about, you said a 14-day fast. And now I know there are different definitions here. There's the intermittent fasting. There's prolonged fasting, like I think what you're talking about. And there's wet fasting, dry fasting. Can you kind of suss that out for me? Give me some definitions.
Yeah. Great question. Great differentiation there. Intermittent fasting means you're pretty much eating in a eating window. So the most popular one is 16-8, which means like you're eating from noon to 8, and then you don't eat anything from 8 p.m. to noon the next day, which is fine. That's better than what most people, 95% of people are doing. It's because most people wake up, they eat breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack, and then go to bed. And the only time they ever give their digestive system any break whatsoever is that 6 to 8 hours that they go to bed. And then they just keep eating as soon as they wake up. So by just even skipping breakfast, you're already giving your body extra time to kill cancer cells, work on other things besides just digesting food, burn body fat, all these things. So that's great. And that's a perfect starting point. But as you start doing that and skipping breakfast becomes normal, if you're a guy like I feel like I talk to a lot and you talk to a lot, then we're constantly trying to see, all right, well, this thing that I've been doing is getting me good results. How far can I push this to get better results? And there isn't unhealthy. Like if you don't have body fat and you're fasting for 30 or 40 days non-spiritually. The reason this guy did it isn't because he wanted or needed to lose 40 pounds, but it was like he's done a 21-day fast, he's done a 30-day fast, and there's something biblical about a 40-day fast. All the like major transformations and major changes in the Bible are 40 days. So it was on his heart to do a 40-day fast. But as you do like a 16-hour fast and then a 20-hour fast, and then you do your first like 36-hour fast where you go a whole day and a half without eating, and then you wake up that second day and you're in ketosis and your hunger's gone and you feel good, and you're like, oh, why would I break? I feel great. Maybe I'll push it to 48-hour fast. It's different for everyone, but what's important is that you start small, see how your body adjusts to it. It's always tougher those first like 1 or 2 days because your body's detoxing stuff. It has a chance to kind of clean your system out instead of just digesting food. And with experience, it's like lifting weights. It's like cardio. It's like doing anything hard. The more you do it, the more you become familiar with it, the more capacity you can handle, and you can start pushing those fasts back a little bit. So the fast I did for 14 days was water only. Typically, so that's a water fast. And I did that to clear out some chemo stuff I went through last year, some like dead cancer stuff from my cancer journey last year. Typically when I'm working with clients and their main objective is just fat loss and more energy and fitness goals and health goals, they can still have 0-calorie drinks like black coffee, tea, like a lot of different things. But for my fast, I wanted to keep it as bare minimum as I possibly could. And that was water and like some salt in there. And then you mentioned a dry fast. That's when you would do it for a much shorter time, for like 1 to 5 days. I've done a 1 5-day dry fast. I'm actually thinking about toying with a 5 to 7 day in the next couple of weeks. But that's when you cut out water, pretty much anything whatsoever. And that's kind of like what the Muslims do during Ramadan from sun up to sundown.
And what would the benefit between wet and dry fast?
So there's pros and cons to both. The pros to the dry fast are that you can get the same benefits of a longer fast in a third of the time. So they say a 24-hour dry fast is the equivalent to a 72-hour water fast. What that means is your body starts breaking down dead cells earlier. You get an autophagy earlier, ketosis earlier. You pretty much tap into all the benefits in a third of the time. And your body even breaks down your fat cells to get the water out of it, because our bodies do want to stay in this state of homeostasis so bad it'll break down your fat cells to get the water out of it. So it's really good for losing body fat. The problem with dry fasting is that if you try to push your limits physically, like go to the gym, you're going to be hurting. And I didn't understand that when I did my first dry fast. I went and ran 5 miles at the gym, and then 2 hours later, I was in my office, down on the floor in the fetal position, taking a nap because my body just could not recover. That's what's nice about water fasting, is you can go to the gym, lift weights, run, do everything just as normal. So it really depends. Are you going to be taking it easy and more like lounging around the house, maybe going on a walk, in which case you can get away with a shorter dry fast? Or if you're trying to still go to the gym, work out, act as if everything's kind of like still normal, that's when you would want to do more of like a liquid 0-calorie water fast.
You're a physical trainer, and I don't know if you still do competitive bodybuilding.
I got my pro men's physique card, I think like 4 or 5 years ago. And that's what ultimately led me to this, Aaron, because I would do these competition preps for 12 weeks. And what that looks like is you get a 1-page meal plan, and it says, all right, wake up, have egg whites, oatmeal. A couple hours later, have a protein shake. For lunch, you can have chicken and sweet potato and broccoli. And then for dinner, you're having tilapia and asparagus. And because I wanted to show up ready on show day, I would do that every day for 12 weeks. And as soon as the competition was over, I would binge out on tacos, cinnamon rolls, pancakes, bacon, margaritas, the list of donuts, cookies, candy, all the food that I had to cut out completely for 12 weeks. I would totally binge out on because I restricted myself so bad. And then what took me 12 weeks to lose, I would gain back in less than a week. And it happened year after year after year until ultimately I was forced to have to attempt doing some prolonged fasting and some intermittent fasting. Long story short, I had much less time to prepare for my show than 12 weeks. And what I found was not only was that the show that I won and got my pro physique card at, so I objectively looked the best out of all my other 5 competitions, but that was the first and only year that I didn't have that blowback and that massive regaining of the weight because my diet wasn't overly restrictive. I still ate what I wanted. I just worked in a strategic fasting schedule around it.
Okay, so tell me, let's break this down. Like, with prolonged fasting is what you advocate for and what you teach, you coach. Rolling 48, 72 hour, 96 hour fast. And there's what happens along this timeline. And then, well, I guess we'll follow up on that after.
Yeah.
What happens during the fasting?
Yeah, great question. So very counterintuitively, the first 24 hours is the toughest. Most of us have done a 24-hour fast if we have to get like a colonoscopy or surgery or whatever, and the doctor says, hey, you can't eat for 24 hours before the surgery or you might crap your pants and I don't want to clean it up. And you're like, sounds fair. I would want to clean it up either. So we fast because our doctor said we'll fast for 24 hours. But that is the toughest part, whether you're doing a 48, 72, 96 plus, is those first 24 hours, because that's when your body is burning through sugar. It has not adapted to burning fat yet. That happens at about hour 36. So all that means is, let's say you start a fast Sunday night at 6 p.m. Monday night at 6 p.m. is going to be the sticking point. That's where most guys break. They fasted all day. They're friggin' want a steak or something for dinner. They're like 24 hours is good enough. That's when they break. But if they don't, if they push it another 2.5 hours, go to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then wake up at that 36-hour mark, 6 a.m. on Tuesday, they will be floored that their hunger has completely subsided. That's because they're now in ketosis. That means burning body fat instead of sugar. So hunger goes away. Best way I can describe it is the sky seems bluer. The birds seem like they're singing your name. It seems like you're in a Disney movie. Just life seems a little bit brighter by a couple notches. And then around hour 48, you start getting this uptick in human growth hormone. So that's why a lot of people are concerned, especially guys that, want to look like they have muscle and have a good physique. They think they're going to lose all their muscle. Not the case, because your human growth hormone gets jacked up, which is not only very muscle sparing, meaning you're only losing body fat, you're not losing any muscle. If you are working out and going to the gym during these long fasts, I mean, you're packing on muscle while aggressively losing body fat. It's like a cheat code. If you can go to bed again, make it to day 3, this is when you really start tapping into what I was talking about earlier, the autophagy. And all that means is our bodies, I think it's like every 7 years or something, we're a completely different person because our cells are like replacing themselves or something like that. Long story short, we have all these inactive kind of like dead weight cells that are just kind of lingering, taking up resources. Autophagy, after 2 or 3 days of not eating, what our body says is, well, normally I spend all my time digesting food, and since I got nothing to do, what I'm going to do is kind of clean house here, and I'm going to attack all these dead, like potentially cancerous, unhealthy cells and recycle them into, new, healthy, like brand new cells. So it's really good. Ironically, I know, because I had freaking cancer last year, but ironically, it's really good for preventing cancer, clearing out cancer cells. And if you do have cancer, which hopefully you don't if you're listening to this, and you're having to go through chemotherapy, it's a really good way to negate a lot of the side effects, because long story short, a lot of your organs just kind of get to rest instead of pump food. So as I call it poison. My nurse called it poison to me, so I feel like I have the right. If you're pumping that poison chemo through you and you're trying to not have like liver damage or organ damage or anything, fasting is a really good way to kind of negate some of those side effects too. So it seems like it's all good from my viewpoint, Aaron. I don't know.
You've mentioned, talk a lot about the cancer effects. Do you have personal experience there?
I sure do. I know. It was kind of, you never want to be the guy that's toting the anti-cancer benefits of fasting, and then you get hit with full-blown cancer. But last year I had a bunch of health issues that seemingly came out of nowhere. It was just like nerve pain radiating throughout my body that kept progressively getting worse and worse. I had this dry cough, just random things that I couldn't place. I attribute it to cutting out nicotine and my body just having withdrawals, but it never got better. And long story short, I found out that I had what was known as a germ cell cancer that the doctor said that was essentially laying dormant in my stomach ever since I was like an embryo. So it's always been there. And then just March of last year, 2025, it just decided to activate and start haunting my life. So it manifested as, by the time I caught it, stage 3 out of, there's only 3 stages in this particular type of testicular cancer. But like I said, I probably would have opted for something more holistic had I caught it earlier and had some more wiggle room. But by the time we caught it, I was essentially on death's door. And they're like, dude, you got to do chemo or tell your kids, enjoy their new daddy. So I was like, all right, I'll take the chemo. And the symptoms subsided fairly quickly. I did 4 rounds of chemo in about 90 days. My oncologist said I was in remission, and I have to continually go like every quarter or something to just make sure everything's good. But again, I try to take that into my own hands. I try my best to stick to a clean diet, but it's easier said than done when you have 3 little kids. And like to your point earlier, you enjoy food and you want some chocolate chip cookies when they're fresh out of the oven when your wife makes them. So the way I kind of keep things balanced is by every quarter, I try to throw in a little bit longer of a fast to give my body a chance to just clear that shit out of me.
During all of that, did you confer with the oncologist or doctors, and they're on board with the fasting, or are there, I guess, detractors in the medical field?
So I didn't get my oncologist to sign off verbatim. And the reason that is, Aaron, is because most people lose a lot of weight during chemo. And so if you're not hip to fasting and you don't understand all the benefits of it, because maybe you just like went through medical school and it obviously isn't a focus there, then you would say, no, you shouldn't be fasting. As a matter of fact, you should be eating constantly to try to negate the weight loss of the chemo. Mm-hmm. And part of me agreed with that, because the last thing I wanted to do, again, because it's my identity to be this single digit body fat, 210 pound, like muscular, big, strong guy. The last thing I wanted to be known as is the frail 150 pound, bald with no eyebrows cancer victim. And so I did want to eat a lot of food. My whole mental goal was I want to beat this cancer and have people be like, the hell happened, dude? I thought Joel had cancer. He looks better than he's ever looked in his life. So I made it a point to eat a lot of food when I wasn't fasting and I was still working out. But because I was doing the chemo treatments every 3 weeks, I would time my fasting around as I was starting and ending that week to negate, to limit the side effects of the chemo. So I was eating like a horse on the day of the weeks I wasn't doing chemo, and then fasting when I was doing the chemo. The problem with what they tell you is they're like, hey, most things aren't going to sound good, so eat whatever you have to eat. Eat Rice Krispie treats, eat donuts, eat cookies, anything to keep the weight on. But what they neglect to tell you, which is really obvious if you give it 2 seconds of thought, is most, if not all, cancers feed off of sugars. So it's like real stupid. So I agree with eating a lot. Steak, potatoes, chicken, maybe even like fruits, vegetables, nuts, stuff like that. But they're like, no, man, eat as many Krispy Kremes as you can. Just keep the weight on. Even though it is like the number one thing that feeds the cancer inside you. So my goal was to eat like a horse and still train as I was going through chemo and just keep as much muscle as I possibly could, muscle and strength. Obviously, it suffered a little bit because but not as much as you might think. And then I fasted around the chemo sessions just to, you're nauseous, so you don't really want to eat anyway. And then also, like I said, to limit the side effects of it.
Imagine you weren't all that hungry after the chemo anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that leads me to another question. What are some of the biggest mistakes that people that just getting into fasting might make?
I'd say a big one is the last meal you eat before you start a fast is really going to dictate how challenging that first day is. If you start a fast, which I've started a fast with just about everything. If you start a fast after a big fat stack of pancakes or like a large meat lover's pizza, it's going to be 10 times harder than had you started your fast with your last meal being like a tomahawk steak. If you can keep it low carb, higher fat, moderate to higher protein, it's a lot more even keel than totally spiking your blood sugar and insulin with a super duper carb heavy meal. And then you wake up first thing the next day starving, and then you're fighting that hunger all day. That's number one. To start the fast with like a low carb, higher fat, higher protein meal. During that first day, drinking enough water. Everyone says a gallon. I don't think I've ever drank a gallon of water. It seems like a lot to me. Put a half gallon of water throughout the day. Make sure you're drinking some water, staying hydrated. That makes a huge difference. And not just drinking black coffee and not having any water. And then also that first day, and especially that first night, staying busy, having things to do. These are perfect nights to go like clean out your garage that you've been saying you're going to clean out, or even just timing your fast around one of those nights that you're running the kids around to soccer practice or dance or, taking family pictures. One of those nights that you otherwise would be driving through Chick-fil-A anyway, because you're figuring out what you're going to do for dinner. You're kind of scrambling. Just make that the night that you push your fast and go into that day two. And as long as you can make it into day two, that 36-hour mark, I'm telling you, you just wake up the next day and you're like, it is crazy how yesterday all I could think about was food. And now I feel like I have transcended the need to eat.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions about fasting?
I'd say biggest misconceptions are that I need to eat every few hours or my metabolism's going to crash. It's quite the opposite, actually. Fasting keeps your metabolism high as opposed to just cutting calories and eating all day. They've done like 1 million studies on that, which is really good if your goal is to not only lose body fat, but keep it off, because you can still eat a lot of food after you get to your ideal weight if your metabolism stays high. Another one is I'm going to lose all my muscle again because of the HGH bumps. Your HGH skyrockets up to 2,000% 48 hours into a fast. So you can imagine if you were taking exogenous HGH, you would be putting on muscle like crazy. Your body is pretty much producing that for you as you're doing these longer fasts. So you don't lose muscle. You don't slow your metabolism down. Really, the big ones are just ones that objectively people have spent billions of dollars marketing, that you need a protein shake a half hour after your workout, or it was all for nothing. You need protein every 30 minutes or you're going to turn into like a scrawny weakling. You need to eat 6 meals a day or your metabolism's going to slow down. It's just, if the answer is consume, you could probably chalk it up to someone spent a lot of money to get you buy some bullshit you don't need.
So, do you work out through a fast?
Through water fasting, yeah. It's actually really good too when you're water fasting, because especially that first day, it helps burn through that sugar quicker and get you into ketosis quicker. So Tim Ferriss, who's another podcaster, author, gentleman, he did a 7-day water fast like 10 years ago. And because he did ask the doctors what he should do, they're like, well, we want you to be under medical supervision, so just stay in the hospital bed, fast, and we'll keep an eye on you. So he lost, I think, 12 pounds, and 11 of it was muscle. And so he's like, man, this seems goofy. This does not seem like what everyone says. So a few months later, he did it again, but this time he trained, he walked, he acted like a normal functioning human being that was out and about burning calories. And because he depleted through his carbs quicker and got into ketosis quicker, he lost again 12 pounds, but this time it was 12 pounds of body fat, 0 muscle. So it's really important to train and remain active, especially in the beginning part of a longer fast, because the quicker you get into ketosis, the quicker you start burning primarily body fat for fuel. And if you're not moving around, it just takes a whole lot longer for your body to naturally get into ketosis. So 100%. And plus, going to the gym, as sad as this might sound, because I do have an amazing family and 3 beautiful angel kids and an awesome wife, going to the gym for me, it is my 1 hour a day of Joel time. And it's really not something that's negotiable for me to give up, only for my own mental health. And so, yeah, as I'm doing like a 48-hour fast, 72-hour fast, 7-day fast, 14-day fast, I'm going to the gym the whole time. It's really only when I'm dry fasting that I don't go to the gym for reasons I alluded to earlier. And that's painful for me. That's why I typically don't do dry fast that often.
Dry fasting, wouldn't that be, you're just dehydrating yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, essentially. Essentially.
That's not dangerous?
In the right environment, it's not. So again, our bodies are very smart and they adapt. So the first time you fast, let's say water fast, it's challenging because your body for the last 30 years, 40 years, 50 years is accustomed to eating a very certain way. But once you hit that first 36-hour mark, something switches in your body where it goes, whoa, I can not eat for 36 hours and I'm not going to die. I actually feel really good and my body's kind of cleaning itself up. So then the next time you fast, it's easier because your body is more in tune of its capabilities. So it's the same thing with dry fasting on a different scale. If you're walking through the desert or you're like I wouldn't recommend somebody push it physically. I wouldn't recommend someone's doing the sauna. I wouldn't recommend someone's doing anything that's going to cause them to lose like excess water, electrolytes. That is why kind of chilling, like relaxing while you're dry fasting is so important. But I've had another legend client. This is something I've never done. He did a 14-day dry fast. And they say that you can go 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. I've seen firsthand all of these things get totally debunked. I've had right now there's a guy on Instagram who's fasting with Jay. He just broke a 120-day fast. He went from being the fattest dude I've seen in a while, like 350 pounds, to 220 pounds. And he just water fasted for 120 days, which is crazy. I'd never seen it before. The longest fast ever was Angus Barbieri, who went from like 400 something pounds to 160 pounds. And he kept it off the remainder of his life. He did like a 370-day fast. So over a year of not eating because he was so fat. Like his body was begging him, dude, stop. We don't need any more stored calories. We don't need any more stored energy. You got enough for the next 13 months. Let's burn some of this. And so that is like the leading indicator, especially for water fasting. If you have a lot of body fat, you're good to go for a while, unless you have some sort of like type 1 diabetes or something like that. Of course, if you got medical complications, it's a little bit different. If you're just a fat guy though, healthy fat guy, you're good to fast. But with the dry fasting, to answer your question, again, fat cells are made out of like 80% water. So because your water eventually realizes that there's no water coming in and it needs water, it doesn't just go without water. It starts collapsing your fat cells and extruding the water from your fat cells and using that to keep your body functioning. So the more body fat you have to lose, just like the water fasting, the longer you can push a dry fast. For me personally, dry fasting is kind of like black belt stuff. If you haven't done like multiple 72s or more water fasts, you really have no business doing a multi-day dry fast. But as you go down the rabbit hole and you learn what your body's capable of and you see that it works and you're navigating your energy and what works and what doesn't through all these things, doing your first 24-hour dry fast is a really good thing.
Is it the same routine? I know you're a weightlifter. Or is it the same routine for runners, say endurance runners, like myself, like doing distance running? Any different approach to that? Because I know, when I'm running, I'm putting away sugar packets, right? Gel packs, that kind of thing, just to keep constant calories going. What about, how does that jive with fasting?
Yeah, big difference. So I was training for an ultra marathon last year before I got my diagnosis. It was the same thing. Even though I tried to do some long fasts, there's something about cardio that makes you ravenously hungry that weightlifting does not typically do for most guys. And I noticed that fasting became way more challenging for me because my appetite seemed to be 3 to 5 times more so than it was when I was just weightlifting. So from that aspect, fasting can be tougher. Not to say you can't do it, but you might want to stick to like more 24, 20-hour fasts as opposed to like 48s or 72s. And plus, it depends on how much fat you have to lose too. You're obviously keeping good shape. But from a performance angle, if your goal isn't to lose body fat, be healthy and have a certain look about your physique, if your objective is to perform your absolute best for like a marathon or an ultra marathon or an endurance race, well, they're two different goals. And in that scenario, I would say, yeah, the gels, the quick active carbs that are going to fuel your body during that elite race, fasting wouldn't be conducive to.
Well, what about, say, training for a race? It takes a lot of miles before the race. So I know like you have a workout routine that generally only has one cardio day a week.
I don't even recommend one cardio day a week typically.
So what about for runners though? Like me, I have a non-running day a week.
So it will depend on one factor. If the example gentleman I'm working with right now, if his main goal is fat loss or long distance running, like performance running. Now, if he has body fat to lose and he's training for a marathon, I would recommend he would do at least a subset of his miles of his training days fasted. So I did an Olympic triathlon 2 years ago. I did the entire thing fasted. Olympics not that crazy. It's like half a half. So it's like a quarter of an Ironman. But like I did the whole mile swim. I did the biking, the running, all of it on game day fasted, and it was no issue. Had it been an Ironman, I probably would have gotten some bananas or some gel tabs in me, but it wasn't that bad. But my training leading up to it, I did probably 80% of my training fasted. I would do it in the morning, and then come like afternoon, evening time, that's when I was having the bulk of my meals up. So that way I kind of got the benefits of both. I got the time on my feet. I got the training. And then because I knew I was going to be training the next day, I would essentially carb up for my next morning's workout the night before. Does that make sense? So I still had carbs in my body to deplete through during my next morning's run. I wouldn't necessarily need to wake up an hour earlier and eat rice cakes and like leftover spaghetti to fuel my run that same day.
All right. What about the rules of fasting? I know for one, I'm going to hit a wall maybe the first 10 minutes because I'm going to be thinking, don't think about food. Don't think about food. And that's going to be maybe you say 24 hours. Yeah, first hour. That's the hardest part for me. But uh, what about waking up in the morning and mindlessly going for a banana, apple, or something, eating that, and then remembering, oh yeah, I was supposed to be on a fast. Did you just ruin your first 24 hours, or you have to start over, or can you kind of, I don't know, give yourself a little pass for a slight break of the rules and keep going? What happens?
You nailed it, man. And that's a problem. The word mindlessly is the whole entire problem. So what's nice about fasting is it forces you to be in the present moment. So many times I catch myself doing this. I'll be working from home. I have to record a webinar or something that I don't want to do, or record some content that is the last thing that I want to do. And I'm forced with a decision. I could either start working on this project I don't want to do, or I could go drive to Smoothie King and get a smoothie and then think about doing the project later. Or I could go to the kitchen, see what's going on in there, maybe find something to snack on. And it is mindless. Where fasting forces you, I can't run away from this sad feeling I'm feeling. I can't run away from this stress I had after a long day and just eat a box of cookies to try to feel better. It forces you to be in the present moment. So there is no mindlessly. However, to your point, going and grabbing a banana or a handful of nuts from the kitchen. The big one is a lot of times like someone will make their kids some toast and put peanut butter on it in the morning. And then, you go to lick the peanut butter off the butter knife and you're like, oh, fudge, I can't. So if you do the first couple times you're fasting and it's very new to you, technically you did break your fast. If it's more than 10 calories, it kind of resets the whole thing. It resets the whole fat loss mechanism. However, I wouldn't say that it's, I would say it's a very valuable learning lesson of, oh yeah, I can't do that. I'm fasting now. And then it really eliminates a lot of the bandwidth where a lot of people who are trying to track calories constantly, they're using up mental bandwidth of, banana. That's about 100 calories. I only have 2,000 calories today. Would that be worth it? Yeah, it's healthy. I'm not that hungry, but yeah, maybe I'll do half a banana. It's like when you're fasting, you just walk by the banana because you're like, it's not noon yet, or it's not 5 p.m. yet. And it becomes this habit of not having to deal with that mental back and forth because you just get accustomed to, I don't eat until family dinner, or I don't eat until noon, or whenever. So it eliminates that mindlessness. That's kind of the whole point of it.
I am the primary cook in a household with 3 boys. And, as a former chef, cook, whatever, you had to taste everything along the way, the whole entire process. I'm usually full before I hit the dinner table. That's going to be a challenge.
Well, what time do you start making dinner?
I'll just order them pizza the entire week.
Well, if you're talking about doing a multi-day fast, then it could be a challenge 1 or 2 times. But if we're just talking about a lot of the clients I work with, if they're not trying to take this really aggressive, prolonged fasting approach, and they're just trying to make the most out of their work day and be ultra productive, grow their business, make more sales, be more productive, they'll fast throughout their work day. And then in this example, you could work on your podcast, work on your book, work on your documentary, work on your content, work on everything you got going. And then once the kids come home from school, it's like, all right, well, work errands hanging it up. Dad, family errand is checking in, and I'm going to start working on dinner. And now you could do what you always do. Kind of taste the food as you go, eat a big healthy dinner with your boys, have a big old protein shake with them, and then do it again the next day. And now you've just fasted for 20 hours a day, 140 hours a week. You're burning fat, you're crushing.
That's fair. And what about actually reaching the finish line, breaking your fast? What are some recommendations there?
If you're doing a 48 or less, it's not any super huge considerations. if anything, if you do a 48, maybe consider keeping your carbs lower. Kind of like the fast going into it. The problem is let's say you do a 48-hour fast, your blood sugar is steady and even keeled for 2 days. If you have, for example, like a Philly bowl, like a big rice, like a big full bowl of rice, what can happen is you can really spike your blood sugar and your insulin, and then you can just like get extremely hungry and crave sugar like a maniac. So taking a more like ketogenic, lower carb approach, at least while breaking, not to say you can't have like sweet potatoes or, I would just stay away from super heavy carbs, even like the same pancakes and pizza example I gave earlier. A lot of times body feels like crap when you break a fast like that, because it's like, what are you doing to me, dude? You didn't eat for 2 days and then you dumped all this on me. If you're going longer, like north of 100 hours, like a week, 2 weeks, 40 days, which I know you're going to attempt here any day now. I know I've got you curious about it. In that case, you want to take some time and drink some like bone broth. After my 14 days, they say you're supposed to take half as much time breaking your fast as you took fasting. I have never abided by that. I took about an hour of drinking bone broth, and then I made this giant charcuterie board filled with eggs and bacon and steak and brats and avocado, and I doused it all in honey and put some blueberries on there. And I went to town, and I was probably the happiest I've ever been in my life. And my body did not punish me in any way.
Okay, so say somebody, not me, but somebody out there is looking to lose maybe 20 or 30 pounds. How quickly and what method? How would one do that?
That is why I'm a big advocate of coaching instead of like a cookie cutter one size fits all program, is because everyone's goals are different. Everyone's ability to execute on those goals are different. Again, this guy that I've been associated with for a few years now doing a 40-day fast, that's not something I would encourage your everyday Jake to do. But because this guy is clearly cut from a different cloth, I'm not going to be his glass wall either and say you can't do that. So it's actually my job to figure out, all right, what is the goal? Is there a deadline associated to this goal? Are you the type of person that really strives off momentum and you want to see some quick wins? So we want to lose the first 10 pounds in the next 2 weeks. So you see that this works and you're bought in, or are you trying to like make some micro changes that move the needle quite a bit? And you want to lose 30 pounds, but you've got 6 months to do it. Well, in that case, we don't really have to do any long fasts. But I would say if someone's wanting to lose 30 pounds and they have 30 pounds to lose, and they have the ability to get aggressive on it. I mean, our sweet spot for our 90 days for guys is about 40 to 45 pounds. And that's assuming they have 1 or 2 little vacations. They have 1 or 2 weeks that are just total screw ups. So 2 months to lose 30 pounds. And more importantly, create the habits and know how to like keep it off. 2 months for 30 pounds easy for a guy. But 90 days for a woman.
That's what would that entail? Is that like what I think I mentioned before, but I'm watching your YouTube videos, things like rolling 48s where you're literally back to back fasting for 48 hours with a break for what, 1-2 meals or 24 hours or is that pretty aggressive?
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. So for someone wanting to lose like the 30 pounds, let's say in 60 days, I'd recommend first, the default is assume most days. Now there's going to be one-offs, but most days you're not eating until family dinner and then for about 4 hours after that. So generally what that looks like is you fast throughout your workday. You have a big protein-packed, awesome meal with your family. And then a couple hours later, as you get into like the nighttime hours, You know, when like you're not hungry, but you want something to snack on. That tends to be when guys get into the pantry or the booze or whatever. That is when you tie in a big homemade blended protein shake. So you're having like a meal and a half every day, a big dinner, big protein shake to get you through the night. Now, once that becomes the standard and you're used to fasting throughout the day and eating during family hours, a 48 becomes really easy because, again, there's a night you're running the kids around practices and you have like family dinner or you have like family pictures. Instead of driving through Chick-fil-A, you just say, oh, I'm going to skip my dinner tonight, skip my protein shake. I'm going to have it tomorrow night like I always do. And boom, you just did your first 48-hour fast. So you could do a really strategic like that. And if you do 1 or 2 48-hour fasts a week, and then you just eat dinner, protein shake the other nights, you can still have like lunch dates with your wife, breakfast with your kids on the weekends, as long as you're just keeping the quality of food high. And easily take off 30 pounds in 60 days.
So not like the whole breakfast buffet, biscuits and gravy.
Hey, every once in a while, man, I'm saying that's my thing, man, is I don't want to cut those out. So I would rather strategically do a 48 on a night that I don't want to drive through and get Burger King. And then on a Sunday, if it's Mother's Day and I want to take my family out for a nice brunch and eat like a freaking a-hole for just an hour, I want to have the freedom to do that.
Makes sense. And, you know, summer breaks, you know, you got to look good, got to have that beach body, right?
I mean, you definitely should.
Well, I think that's a good place to start segueing into the countdown. But is there anything we missed that we should cover?
No, why I really like your show, Aaron, and why I work with typically the demographic I do. I've recently started working more with women too, but historically I work with 95% men and just like 5% badass women, usually like their wives or something like that.
All right.
Is because I feel like as the leader of the house, as the husband, as the father, if you own a business and you have employees under you, there's only one way to lead and there's only one way to set the standard, and it is to live that standard. And so that is why I'm so passionate about working with men specifically, is because leadership, discipline, hard work, these are all ethos that I think most of us want to strive towards. And the way we show up, the energy we show up with, the confidence we show up with, frankly, it might sound vain, how we present ourselves in the world, how we look, it all boils down to kind of what we're talking about here. And what I want to impress upon your audience is it doesn't have to be as arduous or complicated as we've been led to believe.
All right. Well, then we'll get into the countdown to impact. That's 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who've all made an impact in your life.
Yeah, I will say, as far as books go, I'm a big fan of Outwitting the Devil. That's by Napoleon Hill, who also did Think and Grow Rich, but I'm going to put Outwitting the Devil as number 1. I'm going to do my book, which is The Total Reset, Transform Your Mind, or Reprogram Your Mind, Transform Your Body. And let's just throw Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins on there because, hey, military. And I really do think he sets a really high standard for a lot of guys. That is it necessary for people to do as much as he's doing? Probably not, but that he raises the bar so high that we can measure our own efforts against. I think that's important. So Outwitting the Devil, Total Reset, and then Can't Hurt Me.
And 2 quotes.
My favorite 2 quotes are Man in the Arena by Teddy Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's not a real quote, the old Rocky Balboa quote, you know, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. I could go on and on. I made all my clients memorize that like 2 years ago, and it stuck with me. But I think that's probably one of that's a quote that's gotten me through some tough times, just like Man in the Arena. It's, life's going to kick your ass here and there, but the winners are the ones that get back up and stay in the fight. So I love that quote.
And one person.
I'm going to give my one person to Greg Anderson right now. Greg Anderson was an Army Ranger. He also wrote a book, which maybe I should have plugged, but he owns a jiu-jitsu studio out in Washington. He went viral for standing out against COVID when he was on the Washington police force. But anyway, I met this guy in a mastermind group before I knew how much of a badass he was. And right now, him and 3 other gentlemen are on a rowboat, and they're rowing from Washington to Hawaii. It's going to take them about 2.5 months. It's an unsupported excursion. They're documenting it at Row West Pacific or something along those lines. If you go to Greg Anderson's Instagram. Anyway, I just think it's so cool. Like, he has a family, he has a thriving business. He has no reason to do it, but it was on his heart to go out there and do some hard stuff. He found 3 other badasses, and now they're literally just rowing, which has never been done, from Washington to Hawaii. And I'm enjoying watching their journey. I think it's Row West Pacific on Instagram. But I got to give him, man, that was the reason I want to do that 14-day fast, is like, man, if he can do that hard stuff, then I can do something hard too. I just think it's so cool.
That's interesting. I recently spoke to Cyril Deramune, who was not the first, but I guess first unsupported paddle kayak from San Francisco to Hawaii.
Legends, yeah. Man, it's cool. I didn't even know this was a thing, but apparently Greg Anderson was inspired by another group of guys that did something. It might have been that same gentleman, but he was like, man, you know what? If those guys can do it, I guess one of his main ethos is he doesn't want to live vicariously through other men, So when he sees someone doing some hard stuff and he's kind of just consuming their content, he's like, all right, well, maybe this is something I should do myself. I think that's why I like Man in the Arena. It's because it's really easy to be on the sidelines and watching other guys attempt great things, but to be actually in the arena and taking on challenges toe to toe, I think that's what being a man's all about.
Final 2 questions. One, where can people find you if they want to, continue the conversation or find out what you do?
TotalResetCoaching.com is the best way. If you want to jump on a call with me, not one of like my sales guys or some guy, if you want to jump on a quick call, tell me what you're doing right now, what your goals are. I can help you come up with a plan, whether it's with us or without us. I'd love to, connect in that regard. Or if you're not trying to be the man in the arena, which we just talked about, if you're trying to stay in the on the sidelines, you can just follow me at Joel Staley Fitness on Instagram. Would be fine.
And last one. What's your definition of living a life of impact?
Leading by example. I think that's it. Life continually tries to kick us in the balls, and that's not a testicular cancer pun. It just seems to be working with men. I've worked with about 2,000 people over the last 10 years, and it seems like anytime someone tries to level up, life has a way of making them prove it. And it does that by throwing challenges their way and seeing if they're going to keep going. And I just think that to create a life of impact, you need to set a goal. You need to expect obstacles and challenges to come up, but just be relentless in the pursuit of attaining that goal you set for yourself.
Terrific. Thank you. And we'll get your links into the show notes. Joel, I really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise in fitness and fasting. I appreciate it.
Aaron, you're a legend. Thanks for having me, brother.